Brian, as Scott said. I'm the co-founder of Dash Labs. So, I was asked here to present on the founding moment. So the founding moment of Dash Labs is a little varied, and it takes a little bit of context to understand. And so, a couple of things. So what Dash does is we leverage existing off-the-shelf hardware that users plug into their cars. We develop software, iOS and Android applications that gather data while you're driving, analyze it, and help you save money, give you better rates on insurance, give you better insights into your driving habits and behaviors. If something goes wrong with your car, like an engine light issue, we tell you in real time what's wrong and how much it should cost to repair. But the whole genesis of what actually led to Dash is a little more storied. And so I guess one of the first things you should know is that I don't particularly care about cars, which is maybe something people in Brooklyn can relate to. When I moved to New York, I didn't have a car. I didn't have a car for a long time. But I grew up in the kind of wilds of Iowa. I don't know if anyone here has ever gone to Iowa. There's not much there, but you definitely have to drive. And so one thing to note about Iowa, you can start driving like tractors at 13. Like literally, if you are a farmer and your kid is 13, you can say, yep, legally go into this tractor and drive it for me. And if you're not a farmer's son or daughter, you can drive a car at 14, provided a family member is in the car. And so me, Brian, I've been driving since 14, which is really terrifying. And at 15, you can drive by yourself. 16, you can, you're already driving at 15. So anyway, I've been driving for a long time. And when I moved to New York, I did not have a car. I got a car in a weird way for $500. I lovingly call my car Old Busty because everything about Old Busty is broken. I have no hubcaps. It does not lock. It has not been stolen because everything is broken on Old Busty. It has a sunroof, which is a very special feature. If I had a sunroof when I was driving at 14 in Iowa, I would think I'm pretty cool. But the sunroof on Old Busty has like an electrical short, I don't even really know. And so it decides when I'm not even in the car to open itself. And so when it rains and snows, I have a little anxiety in my heart for an Old Busty because I'll be pushing water out of the car later. But what happened to start Dash Labs is this. So I was working with my now co-founder at HBO, the media company. And I was working on HBO Go, but we were doing something on the side related to hardware, actually. And so we were developing this hardware product that would help with on-air programming. And so I was going to drive then with in Old Busty, with my later to be co-founder to Mohegan Sun, because they were videotaping stuff at Mohegan Sun and we needed to drive there. So I got Old Busty out. I got Jamin, my co-founder, in the car. We're driving on the BQE. And so, I accelerate as hard as Old Busty will let me onto the BQE. There's oncoming traffic. It's kind of a mess. And my co-founder also, he was raised in London, then in New York, never really drove. And so he was terrified. He was actually yelling at me, oh, you're a terrible driver. We almost hit this car. And it got us both in this argument about what it means to be a good driver. And me being from Iowa, driving from 14, I'm like, I've been driving since 14. I've never gotten in an accident. What are you talking about? I'm a great driver. But that's a terrible metric, right? I could be a very, very terrible driver, but everyone's avoiding me, around me, and avoiding my contact. So I started talking about how we could, in this quantified self era, start actually measuring driving behaviors to know if someone's an actual good driver. So we did some research and looked into the problem and actually discovered that in 1996, the US government mandated that all cars have this port which allows access to all the electronic systems on a car called OBD. And we're like, wow, that's amazing. So we looked into it more and found that there was this commoditized hardware that you could plug in that connected with Bluetooth. And so we said, that's great. Like, we love data, we love emerging platforms. Like, someone needs to take this data from the car, analyze it, give back to the user all this information they never knew they could have. So when something goes wrong, when you're accelerating rapidly and you shouldn't be, this data should be presented to you on your phone and given to you in a meaningful and useful way so that you can actually act upon it and become a better, safer driver. And so that's the story of Dash, and thank you for listening.
Well, great story. I think we can thank Old Busty for Dash and
Still alive and well.
Because of Dash. So, does anyone have any questions for Dash? Again, just has done some super cool stuff. Just graduated out of the Techstars program. Is doing some really amazing things. Yes.
So now that you have this thing that's potentially poised to disrupt the existing market, are you getting friction from established powers like car manufacturers, gas companies, etc.? How are you dealing with that as a co-founder of a company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've actually made a lot of inroads thanks to Techstars. Actually, we have relations at GM and Ford, and other OEMs, manufacturers have reached out to us. We also thought going into it they would be very resistant to it, but they actually admit that they're terrible at software. You've probably seen, they have, some of them, like Cadillac has an app you can download on your iPhone, it's terrible. Some of them have those infotainment center things in the car. They're really hard to use, and so they, by their own admission, say it's terrible. So they're actually fairly easy to work with, or like they're very open to it, but it's hard to actually work with them because they have long lead cycles. If they want to develop something new in a car, it takes at least 5 years to go from design to actually getting it on the market. Because there's a lot of legislation, a lot of testing, which is a good thing. But it's probably indicative of why it's kind of terrible at this point in terms of their software. So you see things now like Siri getting pushed into the headset, and that's actually positive to Dash because we can leverage that, push Dash into the headset, and still gather the data from the car and then analyze it.
Thank you. Yes. That was fast. Mind-body connection.
Are you seeing any specific, anybody else in the space right now? And how are you trying to differentiate what your product is?
Yep. Yeah, great question. So so we started the company in July of 2012. There was really no one in the consumer space at that point. There was Progressive Snapshot, which is a insurance company, Progressive. They send you a device, you plug in for 6 months, blah, blah, blah. But their hardware is manufactured by Zergo and existing Claire for mechanics. But since we started, there have been some point solutions that came out but haven't really gotten traction. But the big one is Automatic. So Automatic is our biggest competitor, and they released on iOS. And so it's a nicely designed product, but the biggest distinguishing factor for us is that we're hardware agnostic. Automatic actually started 3 years ago, and at that time, the OBD, that's the device that you plug into your car, the OBD hardware wasn't as good as it is now. So when we started in July of 2012, we did a big survey of the market of hardware and found that this hardware was continuing to get better and commoditized. And actually, a year and a half later, it's kind of proven out to us because there's really quality devices that you can get on the market for $30 now, whereas Automatic creates their own hardware and sells it for $100.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you guys.
Dash rules, Automatic rules. That's all I want to say about